Ooh.
2021 in the motherfucking his house.
Yes, happy 2021.
So it's that bitch you love to hate, Samantha.
And it's Mason.
And you know it's good when you hear, right?
Topany.
That was so off.
That was really bad. Oh well.
All right. So we're here for me to be the bad guy as we talk about Your Name Engraved Herein.
I think you're overestimating my enjoyment of this movie.
It's not even about overestimating. I think you're underestimating how extremely disappointed I was in this movie.
Sam's about to give it a 0. She's like 0, -5.
Listen, everybody has that unpopular opinion. This is mine. And for those of you who watch thinking that like I might be this like I love everything type of person, you are sorely mistaken. And I hate to lose subscribers, but you got to give me a pass on this one because I cannot pretend like there are not some serious fundamental problems with this particular movie. So Mason's going to give the trigger warning and then.
Yeah. Oh, it paused. It might be on mic.
Okay.
Might be on my side.
Okay. All right.
I don't know how to fix it. We've never had this until I got this new computer. I don't know how to fix it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I'm sorry. It might be glitchy today. I literally don't know how to fix this. Sam's just gonna freeze up, unfortunately, because my computer doesn't wanna hear it. It doesn't want the back talk of Your Name Engraved Herein, apparently. My computer really likes it.
Apparently Mason's computer is super biased and said, fuck that bitch. You're not going to say mean things about my dad.
Yeah, how dare you speak ill. So yes, we are going to talk about Your Name Engraved Herein. There is a huge trigger warning for like the whole video. There is a lot of heavy topics, a lot of homophobia, a lot of some violence. So if you don't really want to hear about that, I suggest logging off and taking care of yourself because those things will be talked about in this video for sure.
A lot of assault here, guys. A lot of assault.
All right.
Okay.
So I'll let you, well, let's do the synopsis first real quick. So the movie is about Jia An, I believe his name is.
Mm-hmm.
Jia An, and he is a third year at a private Catholic school in Taiwan. And it's about how he meets, it's an all-boys school too. It's about how he meets this boy named Birdie, who's very eccentric, very crazy, does, kind of does his own thing. And how they kind of develop a deep friendship and eventual love for each other over their junior and senior years in high school.
Mm-hmm. And they eventually fast forward to about, I guess, maybe 30 years later, and there is, I guess, a re-examination of that relationship 30 years later. I want to start by saying I did not like this movie. We tried recording it earlier, but we had a lot of technical issues. But when we were talking about it earlier, I was mentioning that I didn't watch this movie alone. I actually watched this with my daughter. And part of the reason I watched it with my daughter is because prior to us planning on watching this movie, I had heard great things about the movie based on its box office take in Taiwan, how popular it was in Taiwan, all the awards that it was being nominated for. And when I have the opportunity, I do try to share art with my daughter. I'm that mom who's like, let's go to the museum. And she's like, I could give a fuck about this, but I'm like, you need this so that you don't seem like a plebeian in these streets. So when there's art to be had, I try to share it with her. And both of us came away from this movie feeling like we needed a happy pill. We needed something to alleviate the intense 2 hours worth of sadness. I think we were maybe about 40 minutes away from the end of the movie. And she's like, when is this movie going to be over? Because it was just so incredibly sad. So like for the last 30 minutes, I had it played on like 1.25 speed because I just could not handle it. And she actually physically turned her body away from the screen several times while we were watching this movie. That gives you any indication of like how viscerally upsetting this movie was in terms of the depth of sadness that it leaves on you.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, did not have a good time. Wasn't fun. Wouldn't recommend. Uh, but I want to make sure that in giving my critique, no, number one, that I'm specific, and number two, that I'm not shitting on this thing just because it made me sad. Because Make Our Days Count made me sad, and I love that fucking show.
Mm-hmm.
So I can, a bitch can deal with sad, okay, but this was like almost it was almost trauma porn, and I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
So let us begin with my first bone of contention, the kind of back and forth jumping of the timeline of the narrative. I felt like whoever it was that made the decision to go from present day to kind of the middle of the story to future of the story did us all a disservice. Number one, in the fact that a lot of the conversations that take place, particularly in Father Oliver's office, don't make any sense that they happen once you see where that conversation takes place in the timeline. But also, they don't do a really good job of letting that you get really confused and almost to the point like what's happening. One specific time jump that really both me and Stephanie were like, the fuck's going on? In the very, very far future of the movie, Jian is at a class reunion for his Chinese school in Taiwan, or his Christian school in Taiwan, even though we believe he might be in Canada. We're not sure exactly where he's at that this reunion is taking place because it's not explained. All we know is it's a class reunion. And they hand out this phone directory, and he picks up the phone to call somebody, and all of a sudden we're seeing young Birdie. And that moment, both of us were like, time travel narrative? Because there was no explanation for it at all. So things like that, like I know that the director probably thought he was being super clever by doing that, but at the same time, like for people who are really trying hard to follow the narrative, it was off-putting.
Yeah. Because then after he calls Birdie, you see young Birdie, then you see him at like a phone booth when he's young calling Birdie. And you're like, oh, okay, so we're just cutting back in time. And that was like a bad cut. Like, I think it would have been a lot clearer if he picked up the phone and called, and then you cut to him young putting in quarters in the phone booth.
Yeah.
Go to Birdie. Then you'd be like, okay, we're going to go back in time a little bit now.
Yeah, it just totally catches you off guard because you're wondering, is he gonna call Birdie because he now has Birdie's phone number? But then when you see the young man answer the phone, you're like, did I miss a scene? Like, did they not put the whole movie on Netflix and like this scene is missing?
Mm-hmm.
So that was off-putting. And then me and Mason had a whole discussion about the fact that the conversations that take place between Chian and Father Oliver, that whole segment of short scenes that are intercut into the movie over and over again, really make no sense when you understand when that conversation took place.
Right. And not only that, but the conversations at hand don't really add anything. I feel like they were there to be like artistic. Like, I definitely think that they saw other artsy movies and they were like, ooh, this is an interesting framing device, cutting back and forth a deep conversation with like a therapist or something, which, okay, fine. But then what they were talking about didn't really add anything to the story because it was all just like zingers about why gays should be allowed to love. And it wasn't anything new. It was like, why does your love matter more than my love? And it's like, we've heard that line in many movies, you know? I guess maybe some of that stuff hasn't come up in Taiwanese film and that's why it's so big. And maybe it's because we've had more exposure to queer media where it feels like a lot of what they were saying was just kind of generic info.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and especially like there's one, okay, so there's a fight between Jian and Birdie in the principal's office, administrative office at the school. And Birdie whoops Jian's ass, like the kid's bleeding from his head. this series of deep conversations that Gian and Father Oliver are having supposedly takes place after Gian has gotten beaten up by his friend in the office. During this set of conversations, they're smoking a cigarette, they're arguing with each other, all this stuff is happening. Meanwhile, he's got like an open head wound going on. And it's bizarre because they show that at the end of their conversation is when he actually gets a bandage applied to his head wound.
Yes.
And it's just like, so you mean to tell me y'all spent a half an hour arguing, smoking cigarettes, and talking about the love life of the pastor, of the preacher, before y'all said, oh yeah, by the way, your fucking head is open. Maybe I can handle that for you. It just didn't make any sense unless this was supposed to be a conversation that took place at another time. But you know it's not, because his face is all bruised up from this fight that he was in. So it just doesn't make any sense. Like at one point during this dialogue that he's having with Father Oliver lets him know that, like, I left Montreal when I was 18. It's been 30 years. And first of all, that pastor does not look like he's 40.
No, he does not look that age.
Smoking cigarettes and talking about, your life 30 years ago and why you left Canada. This kid just got beat up. Like, how did the conversation go from A to B and then go back to, oh, I'm putting the bandage on your head. By the way, Birdie's at your house. You need to go home real quick.
Right.
It just made no sense. It'd be different if there had been some kind of establishment in the movie that Gian regularly goes to visit Father Oliver for counseling. Right. Then you could believe that. Yeah, go ahead.
Him and Birdie needed that, because it makes no fucking sense for them to be in their 40s or 50s going to Montreal to his gravesite. Like, Birdie had zero scenes with the father, I think. And Gian just had their argument where pretty much left it as pray the gay away, is kind of how I took it. That's how it felt, because at the end of the argument, it was the priest kind of still being, gay is bad, let's pray. And that's where their conversation left. And it's like, why are we in Montreal? Why are we visiting this priest? He didn't do anything.
Right.
And I don't care that the priest was gay the whole time. I don't care.
That didn't matter at all. Like, it would have been one thing if we knew that the priest, I guess, was over the swim team and he was over the band, and he might have been the only teacher in the entire school. We don't know. It would have been one thing if the priest had also been a confidant for these boys, so that when this big confrontation about why isn't my love treated well, it would have been a buildup to conversations that they'd had where he had been exploring his sexuality through counseling, and finally reached this point where he's like, I'm not going to deny this anymore, and I'm angry that I'm being asked to deny this, instead of it all coming out in one big conversation. Right. So I feel like that was absolutely an oversight that the director could have handled in a much more cohesive way, and also would have made the insert of those conversations make more sense and be more valuable to the narrative if he was experiencing the act itself or whatever happens in that timeline, and then going over his feelings about that particular moment with Father Oliver is kind of like a recap, or this is what my internal dialogue was while I was going through this.
Right.
Yeah, so I felt like that, again, it was shabby. It was rushed. It
was muddled extra narration we didn't need. Yeah. We didn't need those scenes. I think you could have cut those scenes and cut the Montreal when he visits the husband of the father, and like the movie I think would read the same.
Absolutely. You didn't need that last little bit. Other things that bothered me, we didn't get to see as much of how Gian became so close to Birdie. Gian and Birdie meet in the swimming pool at the Catholic school. And immediately Gian is kind of like, hey, whereas Birdie didn't really seem like he was giving that same energy. He's like, yeah, I go to school here. But
Mhm.
then they're doing an exercise where they're asked to hold their breath, and it's Gian who decides to rescue Birdie. And I guess that's supposed to be our introduction to the idea that they're closer. But all of a sudden they go from I pulled you out of the water during this breathing exercise to I'm sneaking in your room when they're checking beds. I'm sneaking into your bed at night. Like
Mhm.
it was like, where did this closeness come from?
Yeah, he was crawling into his bed early in the movie, and I was like, okay, that was
Yeah.
fast.
And there was kind of like a BDSM-esque scene where Birdie gets caught sneaking into the dorm with food that he's not supposed to have. And he's on the ground on all fours being paddled by the dorm monitor. And he is making the sex eyes with Gian. And I'm
Yeah,
like, what is this supposed to be?
it was weird. They had a lot of I just man, most of their scenes kind of sucked. I think the only scene that was like kind of that I thought was cute was the scene that they had in like the back room of the movie theater where Birdie's like, "Oh, I want to be a director," and they're like in this kind of like empty theater, and Birdie turns on the projection and he runs up to the front and he starts like acting out a scene from a play, and then you have Gia like doing like shadow puppets and like tickling the head, like shooting him, like very fun interactions. And then like the manager runs in and he's like, "Get out of here, you kids!" And they're like, "Boo!" Uh, that was like the only time where I felt joy, and I was like, this is
Yeah,
nice. I
and
like
more
this.
of those scenes would have been really good because it shows them as being kind of equal friends, that they're both contributing to conversation, that they both are as invested in what they're doing, that they both have an idea about who they are going to be outside of each other, but also where they plan to still be together in terms of like their careers, being friends, stuff like that. But like early on, it seemed like Gian was always constantly being pulled into situations that Birdie was a part of, and he
Mhm,
seemed like he wanted nothing the fuck to do with it
mhm,
early. And then after that scene in the screening room at the theater, all of a sudden it's basically just Gian giving Birdie anything he wants to keep Birdie in his life. And I'm like,
right.
bitch, you cannot be this pathetic. You cannot be this pathetic.
Mhm,
I'll never get over the scooter. I'm sorry. If that was real life, I'd have the scooter really pissed me off because in the story, Gian wants a scooter because he wants to be able to take his man around town. Which, I get it. You're a teenager. You want to have wheels, have a little freedom, do what you want. After Birdie starts dating Bun Bun, basically Gian gives his scooter to Birdie so that Birdie can go on his dates and everything else. And at one point,
mhm,
there's a piece of dialogue where Birdie's like, "Oh, do you need your scooter back?" So he's just keeping it full time. And that's why he had it when the accident happened, because he basically kept this kid's scooter. And then
mhm.
the kid, because he didn't have to pay for it, his mom did, is like, "Oh, don't worry about the scooter. I'm worried about you." And I'm just like, "No, bitch, worry about the scooter. Because when your mom finds out that you let your friend borrow your key to your scooter and they wreck that shit up, she ought to whoop your ass."
Mhm.
But no, it's just he's just constantly giving. And there's just no indication in a lot of those early scenes that Birdie's giving anything back but charisma.
Right. The only the only scene where he gives anything back is the shower scene, which was ooh, that scene made me very uncomfortable.
That was the scene that I had a hard time convincing Stephanie to turn her body around.
Uh-huh.
Even after it quit being gropey, she was just like, "No, no, no." And I'm like, "They're not doing anything. They're just crying now." And she's like, "No, no, no, no. I don't want to see it."
Yeah, it was basically there's like the shower scene where Birdie is like, arm in a cast, like I guess he needs help showering, and Gian's the one to do it, and he just jerks Birdie off, gives him a hand job. Um, it's a little weird. They just like hold the camera and you watch them, and then they like collapse in each other's arms, and then Birdie like passionately kisses him, and then they sob because their love can never be. Yeah, that's it. That's the scene. And I didn't know what they were going for. Was it sad? Was it supposed to be sexy? It wasn't sexy. Was it supposed to be honest and raw? I don't know. It just felt a little.
It felt rapey as shit. It felt rapey as shit. When I was watching it, there was a moment where Birdie says, "No, stop." That's when your hand falls away, friend. That's when
Yeah.
you winch yourself off and get the fuck out the cubicle. Also, they're in a cubicle shower, and it looks like the bathroom is fucking crowded as shit because there's boys all around when they get ready to start this shower, and the sound of like dick slapping is completely loud. You don't hear anything but like dick slapping and then crying and breathing heavy. And it's just like, Birdie has every right to find his crutch and beat you to death with it because you're making it hot for everybody here. He told you no when you started jerking him off. You kept going anyway. You're in the midst of a crowded bathroom, so of course, if anybody was even walking anywhere near the stall that you were in, they heard the jerk off and they know there's two boys in that stall. What the fuck do you think people are going to think about it? And you who are so, I can't be associated with the gay kid at school. I can't let anybody know that I might be gay. What the fuck are you doing here?
Yeah.
In the middle of a crowded shower cubicle. What are you doing? The emotional crest of this movie. And I'm like, y'all need to stay as far the fuck away from each other as possible.
Yeah. It was a weird relationship. It seemed a little toxic. Yeah. It seems like they should just not talk to each other. I don't know. I didn't understand when they were like older and they re-met in Montreal. I was like, why are you still thinking about him? Like, I get it. He kind of like maybe awakened the gay in you a little bit, but you guys are mean to each other.
Birdie is so fucking mean to Gian when he with the balloon thing. I remember thinking like, okay, this is your signal that you need to leave this guy the fuck alone. So in order to kind of not seem too gay now that Birdie has a girlfriend, Gian goes on a date with a girl that he tried to maybe make out with at the beginning of the movie. And the date's going terrible, but the girl's really trying. And so she decides to tell him, like, oh, hey, did you know that when you say goodnight and you translate it into characters, that it means I love you if you page it to somebody? So he calls on the telephone booth. He calls the pager of Birdie and he leaves the message in like digits that basically means I love you. But I guess if you didn't know that that's what it meant, it would just look like a string of numbers. So anyway, Birdie gets the message and he goes to school the next day. He's like, hey, did you try to call me last night? I was on a date and I got home late. I didn't think you'd still be awake, so I didn't call you back. Then he says, I need you to go with me for this adventure I'm about to be on. And the adventure is for him to steal what looks to be like a weather balloon or something in order to send a message to his girlfriend at the school. The message on the banner that he writes for his girlfriend is the translation of the message that Gian sent to Birdie over the pager. And then he's smirking at Gian and says, yeah, you didn't want to tell me what you meant when you sent me that message, but I looked it up. I know what it means. And I'm directing it to my girlfriend over there. I'm like, that's really fucked up, dude.
That's really fucked up. Yeah, they're not good for each other.
No. And the unsung fucking hero of this whole fucking movie and who deserves all the rights in the world is fucking Bon Bon.
She got real fucked over. Really fucked over. I feel really bad for her. I was like devastated for her when she said that, like, she's like, I wouldn't have minded if he was gay, but him lying about it all those years fucked up my life because now I'm just a sad single mom.
Right. Not only that, but like she got expelled from school behind his balloon stunt when what if she had never been dating him? It's one thing if the school found out that those two were dating and they're like, well, you're being expelled because it's a Christian school and women are all harlots or saints. But if she had never been dating him and he just did this to try to get her attention, what was the school going to do then? They were going to expel her for being attractive? Like, she literally got expelled from school.
For something he did.
Yeah, for being the focus of his stunt. Not for pulling the stunt herself, but for being the focus of his stunt. Meanwhile, he gets a suspension and some demerits.
You know what was real fucked up too? So the dad, Birdie's dad comes and he starts beating on Birdie. And one of the guys that works at the school is like, don't beat him. This is a school. We don't believe in corporal punishment. And it's
What
like,
was the
Birdie got whipped at the beginning by the dorm leader. So what are we doing here? What are we doing here?
Like, we just saw him getting paddled doggy style at the beginning of the movie. What do you mean you don't believe in corporal punishment?
Oh, well. You know who I also feel really, you know who I really wanted to know what happened to? Because I feel like we almost earned it. What happened to the out gay kid? Because he just kept getting bullied and beat up. Like, there's a really hard to watch scene where a bunch of boys, so Birdie and Gian are like kind of in the showers and they were talking.
Trigger warning.
Yeah, trigger warning. This is a really bad scene. So it was after Birdie had gotten paddle beat in the butt. Gian gives him like some soap to be like, hey, this will help with the bruising. And then they hear some ruckus of people coming into the shower. So they like, Gian goes and hides in the same shower that Birdie was in. And these group of boys, they literally came to the showers to start beating on the gay kid. It's really nasty. And then
that was when the Stephanie turned around for, because at one point they're like, we heard that gay people don't have pubic hair. So they pull down the gay kid's pants and then they take out a lighter and they were going to set
pubes.
Yeah.
They were going to burn his fucking pubes. And then the only reason they stopped is because Gian walked out. And then they coerced Gian into beating him. And he's about to. He literally has the like bat in his hand and it's raised up. And then Birdie comes out and he just like gives everyone a fucking death glare. And he picks up the gay kid and he like walks off. That scene. And then the next time we see the gay kid, he is totally bruised. But it's the next school year. So they're seniors now. And
the first day of the next school year, too, by the way.
Yeah. And then Gian looks up to him and is like, did those guys beat you again? He's like, no, this is from someone else. Someone threw a brick at me. This is from something else. And then Gian's kind of like asking him, basically Gian kind of says, I think I'm gay. And it just, I
hated that scene.
I hated that scene. And then the gay kid like puts his arms around him and then Gian grabs him by the throat. This kid who is basically still bleeding because someone threw a brick at his head, grabs him by the throat. And then we never hear from him again. Like, honestly, I was like, did he die?
I know how you feel. I feel like we deserved a 30 years later on that kid.
Yeah.
Because the kid didn't come across to me like he was anything other than like a quiet, keep to yourself type of person. So like, it would be one thing if we had known what the inciting incident was that made everybody determine this is the gay kid that we need to kick his ass. But this kid was in a few other scenes and he's totally melded into the background. So like, why is it that everyone is focused on him? Also, quiet as it's kept. This is an all-boys Catholic school. I don't think this is the only gay kid or the only practicing gay kid in this school for them to focus on him in particular. So what was the deal?
In my like, oh my God, I'm just like fantasizing about what this could have been. Some of the boys that beat him up, they got a little from him.
Got a little mad because he said no and like, do it for the other boys, why not me? But like, yeah, the fuck goes on. What goes on?
So yeah, I wish we knew what happened to him. I wish at the 30-year reunion he walked in with his husband and he was like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. I'm gonna worry about Heidi. And I don't, if you don't watch Drag Race, you don't get that, but
but yeah, I was really, really upset because I thought it very poor taste to go up to somebody that you see has been injured, who obviously has gone through something very painful, traumatic, still painful, like still open wounds, and be like, oh man, who beat you up? Now that we've got that out the way, I'm gay. Got any tips for me? Like,
Mhm.
that just felt like, if I was him, I'd have been like, what? I just told
Mhm.
you about how people kick the shit out of me. Are you trying to trap me into getting beat up again or something? I
Mhm.
wouldn't have even had a conversation with this kid.
Mhm.
But this kid obviously is a much better human being than I am, because when he goes to put his arms around Gian, you don't get the feeling that he's doing that because he has love for Gian or that he is trying to hit on him. It's more like, I am completely gay. Like, it's just part of me. It's not anything that I am putting on an act for other people, or that I need to stop myself because I'm doing it on purpose to arouse other people or affect other people. This is just who I am. And
Mhm.
that's why if I can touch you like this and you can feel that energy, because I really am attracted to men. And so it's not about how did I find out? It's just me. This is just me.
Mhm.
And that kid seems like such a brave kid amongst a school full of fucking cowards.
Mhm.
And it's just
Cowards and bullies.
cowards and bullies. The only thing that this movie ever does to make you think that the man on the street has the marriage equality sign and he gets carted off by the undercover police, he tries to go after the guy, but then is stopped. But those are the only things that make you think that maybe Birdie's not an asshole.
Right.
And also, like, if Gian is really trying to like be in the closet, be undercover with, not letting people know he's gay, what was that song that they wrote for the military song competition?
Right. Well, that's one of the reasons that he Birdie got a girlfriend, was because people were like, "Oh, Birdie, you little." Birdie was like, "I gotta get a girlfriend now." And
Mm-hmm.
also, Jian did a really bad job covering up that he might have been gay. Like, even the scene where Bon Bon and Birdie kind of got together, Jian literally runs off in anger and yells "fuck" in front of a bunch of people. It's
Yeah.
like, sir.
It's like, girl, your flag just fell out your pocket.
Also,
You want to pick that up real quick?
Birdie can eat shit because he almost outed Jian to his parents. There's a scene, so once the timeline of the film, like halfway through, or maybe a little more than halfway through, we get caught up with like the present time. We're in the office. Jian has told his story to father, and a kid comes in saying, "Hey, your mom's on the phone. Birdie's at your house." So Jian runs home. Birdie's there, and he basically just starts yelling at him, being like, "Oh, your son will never get a girlfriend. Maybe he'll just never get a girlfriend, for other reasons." And it's like, Birdie, shut the fuck up. Like,
Yeah, Birdie's like, who has balls now? And then Gian's about to come out to his parents, and Birdie's like, shut up. Just leave me alone. You came to my house. Let's not act like I'm the one bothering you. You showed up at my house and you beat me up because I tried to keep your dad from killing you at school.
right.
So, like, also another way to throw yourself out the closet by getting in the way of a man and his dad. Like, no, don't harm my boyfriend. I
He
love
took a
you.
chair for him. A
Right?
chair. A whole chair was broken. Man, and then then Gian runs off and goes on a boat to an island, and an overnight trip, I guess. Where'd he get the money? Don't know. Um and then Birdie follows him, and then they go skinny dipping and make out on the beach. And then they're like, "We'll never see each other again." You're like, "Okay, thanks." This great
Yeah.
last moment of their love is so dumb and boring.
I mean, you could have at least showed them giving each other blowjobs or something. Like, let us know that like there was a reason why this is the last time.
All right, turn over. A brown spot in the sand.
Something,
Yeah.
little yin yang body symbols in the sand. But yeah, like this movie there are so many places where this movie could have been better. And those places are really easy to see. It's not like you're looking at this movie and you can't quite place your finger on what it is that makes this movie bad. The problem with this movie is that this movie is a series of scenes in the life of one particular young man, but the transitions from scene to scene are messy, if not just completely absent.
Yeah.
And without those transitions, or without the correct uh scenes being shown, you don't understand the emotional connection that he has for Birdie. You don't understand why 30 years later he's still looking for Birdie and wants to connect with him again. And that is the fault again of the director. And this is the thing that makes it also really, it makes me an asshole to be critiquing this movie the way I am, because the director basically decided to tell his life story here, because he was a teenager in Catholic school when martial law ended in Taiwan. He went to a Catholic school. This is the story of him and a lot of the gay kids that he knew growing up. And that's the problem sometimes with super personal stories, is that you know all the connecting parts that aren't shown on screen. You know all the ligaments, but other people who have not lived that life, people who aren't from Taiwan, people who weren't alive in 1987, like Mason, a lot of the people that miss all that connective tissue, to them, this is just a series of vignettes strung together over the course of 2 hours.
Right. I definitely feel like there's a lot to be lost not being a gay person in Taiwan. Like, there's a lot lost if you're not
That's
a gay person in Taiwan watching this movie.
age.
Huh?
Person in Taiwan who's in your 40s.
Yeah.
Because this is also a movie that has a lot of nostalgia points, like talking about different artists that were popular at the time, the clothes, just the way that the environment felt at that time. If you aren't of that age group, some of that could very well be lost on you. But
Mhm.
yeah, I feel like that is a hazard when you're telling a personal story, is that every bit of the year's worth of background to your own personal story. How do you condense all that and present it in a way that gets your audience caught up so that they can feel how impactful these scenes were when put into context of everything else that happened?
Mhm.
And I think that this movie would have absolutely done itself a huge service if they had had an outside consultant look at this movie before they finished filming and said, okay, here's the parts where a layman might have questions and you need to show them
Mhm.
instead of assuming that they know.
Right.
Like, there was a scene that was so bizarre to me, and I had so many questions because I didn't understand where we were and what we were doing at that moment. I guess they might have been in a karaoke room. I'm not sure. But after the marriage equality advocate gets arrested on the street, they end up in this red room that seems like it has couches. And I think it might be a karaoke room, but we don't know for sure. And Birdie has fallen asleep, and Gian is trying to kiss him in his sleep. And a man looks through the cubby hole in the door and sees this happening and is like, hey, I need to clean up the table in there. And then tells Gian, you can't be messing around like that in here. Basically saying, like, people can see, don't do that. This is not safe. So then they leave and they're like going up and down a set of stairs, talking to each other, kind of flirting with each other. But like, I have no idea where they were, why they left there, where they ended up at. Like, there's so many missing pieces around this moment. And what are y'all doing? And what are y'all doing?
Yeah, it felt very inspired by like Wong Kar-wai films where it's the sense of almost like aloofness as to where people are in the timeline. They're just kind of walking and talking, but it didn't have the same impact that like his films do, but you can definitely see that they tried to do that and they did not succeed.
I'm totally glad you said that, because there is a channel here on YouTube, and I'm sure I'm getting their channel name wrong, but it's called Chinese Gay Movie Review. I believe that's the name of their channel. They did a review of this movie before we did. I did watch their review. I'm trying not to copy their review too much, but one of the points that they made that was amazing, and I absolutely recommend everybody watching their review, is that they said they felt like this movie felt like a tribute slash Sparks Note version of several other very prominent gay Asian movies. Like that there were scenes from this movie that reminded them of Happy Together, and scenes that reminded them of Wong Kar-wai movies, and scenes that reminded them of several other notable movies, and like actual like clips where you could put them side by side and see where like the color palette and the framing were very identical. And on the one hand, everybody knows that when you're referencing older movies, that's a shortcut to nostalgia. And nostalgia is something that audiences get very invested in whenever they're watching pieces of media. And that's the reason why so many movies get remade 20 years later. But the problem here is you can't use nostalgia or do scene for scene reframings of things just for the sake of putting them in there. They have to match with the rest of your film. They
Right.
have to be a part of the overall mosaic that you are painting. And that's not that here. The shit just seems like it's here for artistic effect and nothing else.
It really does feel like each scene was, ooh, I'm inspired by this, so I'm going to do this. And so nothing feels super connected. It doesn't string together very well because of that. I just think that they were almost too many inspirations. And I just don't think that the director added anything of himself. Like, I don't know what the director's voice is as a director. Like, the reason that he is inspired by those other pieces of media is because someone like Wong Kar-wai has a very specific voice as a director. You know, he knows what he's going for. And so do those other movies that they were talking about. This movie was only, each scene was inspired by another movie he saw, and nothing of it seemed to come from himself, except for maybe some of the general plot. But like, I don't know, it just wasn't, it was nuanced in a way that we've seen before, but it wasn't nuanced in a way that felt personal, if that makes sense.
Right. And because of that, when we fast forward 30 years later and we see all the steps that Gian has taken to try to kind of stalk Birdie, honestly, you're like, what did this kid do to you that got you so fucking hooked? Because I mean, the actor who plays him 30 years later is a handsome older man, and he was a good looking kid when he was like the teenage actor. So you lived through your life fairly handsome. If you wanted to get men, you had opportunities. So why is it that you are so hung up on this kid from high school who was actually an asshole to the point that he's calling this kid's ex-wife, which personally, if it was me and I had the feelings that she had about her ex-husband, you couldn't get me at the playground talking about my marriage. You could not do that. I wouldn't want to hear it. I wouldn't want to say nothing to you. I'd be like, fuck you. And then out of nowhere, it is revealed that she knew that Gian had a crush on Birdie, and she tried to seduce Gian at one point, but I guess he rejected her. And I'm like, first of all, why are you revealing that now? And what the fuck does that have to do with anything?
Right.
It was just, it was so messy. The messiest scene of the entire movie, which had no bearing on anything, that absolutely could have been deleted and no one would have missed it, is when Gian's at the home of this old gay man.
Right. I was like, why do I care? Who cares?
Yeah.
I don't care about the father.
We don't know who this man is. We don't know how they met. We don't know why they're spending the day together. But they're drinking tea, having, I guess, a meditative moment, whatever. And then all of a sudden, this man is like, I'm fixing to suck the life out of you. And Gian looks visibly uncomfortable. And it's just like, okay, if you're this visibly uncomfortable, why are you here?
Mm-hmm.
Were you seeking somebody to do this with? Is he paying you? Like, what really goes on here? And it made me question a lot of things about Gian. It made me question whether or not his crush on Birdie was legitimately his first crush on a boy. It made me wonder if Gian has been kind of cruising behind the scenes and it just never came out.
I've seen him kind of cruise with the old man.
So that's why I'm like, I feel like there's a whole lot that has not been said that we're just supposed to assume, but we're not given enough for us to make real concrete assumptions. And also, like, even if he has been cruising behind the scenes, even if he has been having sex with other men behind the scenes, how does that impact his feelings for Birdie? because it doesn't. That scene was just there to be awkward and to show him being uncomfortable with his sexuality. We already had that when he confronted the gay kid at the school.
Yeah.
So why did we need it again?
We already had enough. I also want to know, there's a conversation that when they're older that Birdie and Gian have when Gian's like, oh, you can say that you're gay now, like live it up. And I just wondered, like, we still kind of don't know where these two people ended up in life. Like, is Gian out and proud? What is he? What does he do? Did he fulfill his dreams? Is he a musician? What about Birdie? Is he a filmmaker? Is he just like a sad guy that like was married to a woman for a while and then came out and is now just like sad, I guess, and hasn't lived his life since he came out? Like, I don't know. Also, why did he go to Montreal to visit the father too? It's just
Does
like,
Birdie live in Montreal? Like,
no. Birdie doesn't live in Montreal. Birdie also went to pay his respects to Father whatever, the white guy. And he, because when he was saying like, oh, where are you staying? Birdie's like, oh, I'm staying at like the Grand Hotel down the street.
okay. So now I have the question. The school reunion, did that take place in Montreal or did that take place in Taiwan? If that took place in Taiwan.
Took place in Taiwan. He then met with Birdie's ex-wife and then he went to Montreal.
Was there a significance to the dates that he was in Montreal for them to even begin to run into each other?
I think it was just supposed to be romantic that they met up coincidentally on the other side of the world.
Fuck this movie right now.
It is what it is. I don't know.
And the thing that makes me so mad is that there's one scene in this movie that had everything prior to this scene been done correctly, or at least done in a way that it had more impact on the audience, would have been heartbreaking, is the scene in the phone booth when Gian is calling Birdie, and Gian apparently has made it into college, but Birdie has failed the exam to get into college. And we don't know where Birdie is, but wherever he is, somebody is drinking heavy because there's liquor fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Birdie looks like he has been having it rough, like he's in a bad way. Now, we're told by the narrator that they never saw each other again. But saw, I guess, is the important word because that didn't mean they never talked to each other again. They just never saw each other again. Mm-hmm. And Gian is talking to Birdie, and he plays this song, which is where the title of the movie comes from. And that should have been extremely emotionally devastating for us, that he's finally giving his whole confession in this song. But it's not, because the scene immediately before it was Gian sitting outside of a room where a bunch of horny old men are messing around at the hostess bar with young ladies that are half dressed. Right. And so tonally, you didn't give us the buildup we needed to see that this scene is the heartbreaking climax to whatever relationship they had 30 years ago.
Yeah, we almost needed that scene like
after
right after the beach. Yep. Man, I will say, I really like the song. That was a nice song. That was very pretty.
Song was cool. And the movie is pretty. Everyone looks fucking amazing.
I thought the acting was really good. So
yeah. The only terrible actors were like maybe the old men and Father Oliver. The guy who played Father Oliver, I think they just hired a white guy who could speak whatever language was necessary, because I didn't find him to be particularly charismatic.
Yeah, they were really trying to go for like a Robin Williams in not Good Will Hunting.
Society?
Huh?
Dead Poet Society?
No, I think it is Good Will Hunting with Matt Damon.
Oh yeah, that is.
The therapist. Yeah, they're going for that. And it didn't work.
Robin Williams has a lot of those inspiring younger men movies. That's surprising.
Yeah. That are kind of not good when you think about it, but they do like side tangent. His like inspiring younger men, like Dead Poet Society is kind of a bad movie, but like it is a really like huzzah watch. Like when you're watching it, you're like, I'm gonna do anything with my life. And then when you think about it, you're like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, Stephanie loves that movie, and I'm like, I remember watching it back when it was like a new movie and thinking, this is some white people shit.
Listen, I am who I am.
Okay, so I mean, I guess if we're going to end on positives, absolutely, the actors did a great job. I think that the way it was filmed, it looked really good. It really gave you a sense of nostalgia in the way that it was filmed. You really felt like you were transported into the past. I thought that the coloring was really nice. And yeah, there were a lot of really beautiful things to be seen in this movie. Also, I appreciate again, like I was saying, this feels like a very personal story, and because of that, I really appreciate the way that even though it takes place at a time where the whole country is changing, it's the end of martial law, the former president has died, a lot of shit is going on that's changing society. They were very true to the fact that like when you're young, you really could give a shit about that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just out here living your life. Because like when I was young, a lot of crazy shit happened. Like between high school and me graduating from college, Columbine and 9/11 happened. So I remember those things being in the periphery of my life, but my whole focus day to day was my classes or my friends or whatever else I was doing. I didn't spend all of my waking hour thinking about the turmoil of terrorism being brought to America or how unsafe schools are now that kids are bringing high power artillery weapons to school.
Mm-hmm.
During times of great social unrest, we assume that everyone is just constantly like in war mode and that's all they can think about all the time. But no, people live.
Mm-hmm. I
So
mean, hey,
I
we're in war mode
appreciate.
in this country right now, and we're here doing this. So,
Right, we're sitting here talking about how much we don't like a boys love movie, and they fucking stormed the Capitol this week. This week, it
yeah.
happened earlier this week, just a few days ago. This is the longest year in American history. This year is only a week old, and it feels like it's been 2 months.
Yeah.
Goddamn.
All right. So, Sam, what is your final rating for your named
Five,
engraved herein?
five, five.
I'm gonna give it a 7.
I'll go with that for you. Median average is 6 because of all the things that I said that were wrong. This movie had so much potential because Taiwan really does its thing when it comes to addressing gay issues, partially because it is one of the few Asian countries where gay marriage is legal. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, it's not something that hasn't been broached before, both in media and in society. But this is just one of those times where I felt like this movie almost played like it was a movie that would have been made in 1987 rather than a movie made for 2020.
That's a good point.
Yeah, like if this movie had been released in 1987, it would have been the critics' darling and everybody, ooh, a brave new approach to gay cinema. But 2020 and everything being the way it is and all the strides that people have made and all the progress that people have made, this movie felt super old fashioned. And I just feel like it needed an outside consultant. It needed somebody else to come through and be like, okay, this is where you need to kind of tighten this shit up.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. So, 2 weeks from now, our next review, we will be doing Pearl Next Door, and we will have a fun guest. We are so excited. We've mentioned her many a time. It's Aggie. We're finally going to have Aggie Brown. You've seen her in the comments. We've mentioned her. So we're going to have a roundtable about Pearl Next Door. It should be very interesting. We are all three very opinionated people, so I think it'll be a good discussion.
I can already tell you now, this is going to be my second week in a row being a fucking hater. So enjoy it, bitches.
Well, that's good because I was the hater for Game Boys and it was not fun. So,
Oh, yeah. I've totally shown my ass in this review. So I'm prepared to do it again because I have strong thoughts for Pearl Next Door. And depending on what time we film, I might have Stephanie sitting with me because we watched that show together and she has strong thoughts as well.
we'll bring her in. We love Stephanie, so she's welcome on the channel.
Yay. Okay, so this is where Samantha's rant would normally be, and my rant this week is really short because I don't feel like every week I have to have super long rants, and I'm not. This isn't really a rant; it's more kind of like an exploration of Samantha's feelings regarding the topic. So I saw a tweet that somebody wrote that said, "Let's not pretend like a lot of K drama actors aren't just popular because they're hot." And I'm like, you could totally take that and you could put in BL actor, and there you go. So, in my quest to be a more worldly watcher of BL, I have been consuming a lot of BL from a lot of different countries. Like this week alone, I think I've watched 3 Vietnamese BLs, just trying to get into other places and see what they're doing. I'm watching Follow Your Sunshine. I'm watching Nation's Brother. And there's one other story that I'm trying to catch up on, but I can't remember the name of it currently. And I will say that Follow Your Sunshine is a story that like I'm not particularly happy with the storyline or anything, but it's shot really pretty. Everyone has gorgeous clothing. Like the clothing in this show, I'm just like, that is really nice. And also the guy, one of the guys who's one of the leads has a really beautiful voice. Like not like a singing voice, like he just talks and his voice is really soft and pretty and I could
Mm.
just listen to him speak. It's very nice. But what I'm noticing is that there are a lot of shows that feature hot guys who cannot act to save their lives. And it's not me hating on an amateur actor because I get it. Everybody has to have a starting point. Everybody has to have an opportunity to like get in front of a camera, learn about camera placement, how not to look directly into the camera, all these sorts of things. That we're trying to make more mainstream, even though the mainstream doesn't have to be the desired end goal, but we are trying to make it more mainstream in order for us to have deeper conversations, more varied narratives, expansion of tropes, expansion of scenarios and plot lines when it comes to BL. We don't talk enough about the acting. We talk all the time about how we're tired of seeing engineers, we're tired of seeing university students, we're tired of seeing young guys, high schoolers. We don't talk enough about how we're tired of seeing shitty actors.
Mhm.
And an example of that for me is I was watching a show, it's a Filipino boys love called Win Jamie's Heart, which I don't know if I'll be watching much more of it because honestly it's weird. It's like this guy who is this guy has a YouTube channel and his friend is a mukbang YouTuber and she broke up with her boyfriend. So he decided to have a contest to find a perfect match for her and then stage like a vacation date series based on his friend. And this guy decides to be in the contest to date the girl. And he's also like high key flirting with the guy who's setting up the dating series. So he's flirting with the girl and the guy, and it's just really awkward and weird, and like the main thing that this guy has going on is that he makes like really deep sex eyes, but his acting is shit. And I'm like, he is the central focus of this entire show, but he cannot act his way out of a shower curtain. So why are you spending so much time on him other than the fact that he is attractive? And
Mhm.
even then, like his face is attractive, but his body's just kind of so-so.
Mhm.
And so I wish we would spend more time recruiting actors. There are some shows that I've watched that I can honestly say the shows were not that great, but the acting really got me in there. One of the shows, absolutely, that I could say that for, and this is an unpopular opinion, get ready to hate me, Theory of Love. Theory of Love, I enjoyed Gunn so much as an actor that I was able to put up with several episodes of him crying,
Mhm.
just sad, abject misery crying. And if it had been in the hands of a lesser actor, that series would have been unwatchable because it was just sad. I'm being taken advantage of. My best friend is not loving me, but I'm just his fucking doormat and do anything he says for me to do. That gets old really fast. But
Mhm.
Gunn is such a talented actor that you're like, I will go ahead and I will sit this one through just because I want to see what happens to him.
Right.
Same thing with Senior Honey Puppy Love. the way that Gun's character is treated by Off's character, it's like, again, why are you dating this guy? But Gun is magnetic and you just want to see the next thing he's going to do. And I go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I would like to add this is gonna be an unpopular opinion too. I would like to add until we meet again to this scenario, because Fluke, he can act his ass off. Is the definition of go on girl, give us nothing. So
Is like, I'm giving you stone, I'm
yeah,
giving you granite, I'm giving you obelisk in a monument.
yeah. And
Yeah,
then
but
Fluke's
yeah,
like, I am here, 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 here. And I know it's like a difference of character, but really, was not the greatest actor in that show.
yeah. Fluke, meanwhile, was like, did you say tears? Because girl, I got tears. Yeah, tears for you. Like he
Mhm.
totally he acted the shit out of that. But we really do need to be talking about this acting, because you can be a rookie actor and still have a lot to contribute to a series. Prime example, Talay from My Engineer, rookie actor, still had a lot to offer to the series. Win from Together, rookie actor, still had a lot to offer to the series. You don't have to, yeah, Golf from Foreign Type, rookie actor, a lot to add to the series. You don't necessarily have to say, oh, well, if we're going to get a hot guy, then we have to sacrifice the acting. All the guys I mentioned here are hot. Every single one of them. Not a Ugmo in the bunch. They're hot guys, but they're also actors, and they're new actors. And the longer they act, the better they're going to get. So I feel like we need to quit trying to make this sacrifice like, well, it is BL, and not a lot of guys are comfortable kissing other guys. And if you want to get attractive guys, and sometimes we got to get guys who aren't good actors. No, that's not true, especially because so many of these hot guys that you're saying can't act, the reason why they're getting into BL is because BL is the shortcut to international attention. That's seasoned actors or people who actually have acting potential, because they know if that show hits, they're going to have fan meets, they're going to have commercials, they're going to have endorsements, they're going to have fashion shows, they're going to have all the trappings of stardom if they get the public interested. Don't think for a smooth second that Bright didn't decide to do that show because he knew it was going to be the next big thing. He saw what Sodas did for Singto and Chris, and he said, I would like that attention as well. So he's a seasoned actor, but he's like, my profile is not as big as I need it to be. I'm going to do Together to get my profile out there. And since then, Bright has blown the fuck up. So that excuse of, well, we can't get hot guys wanting to do BL or wanting to kiss other guys, cut that bullshit out. That's not true. That's not true. So we absolutely need to make a push towards better acting in these series because they deserve. And prime example of when it all comes together is I Told Sunset About You.
Mm-hmm.
When you bring in beautiful cinematography, when you bring in wonderful sets, when you bring in an interesting, nuanced storyline, and you bring in the actors who can actually pull that shit off and get you invested.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're going to continue to reference I Told Sunset About You many, many times throughout our show, just because it is that one that you point to, like, this is the gold standard.
Mm-hmm.
But the gold standard is not that far away, friends. It's not that far away. It's just we have to quit making assumptions that we have to take all these shortcuts and make all these shitty concessions and be so fucking cheap about shit just because it's BL and we're just lucky to have anything. We don't have to take that. We do not have to take that. We don't have to be just lucky we got anything, because people are out here making real money. Gaia Saw Película and Game Boys are on Netflix, baby.
Mm-hmm.
They got real money. So this whole you just got to accept it because otherwise you would have nothing. No. If Netflix is out here buying boys love shows, it's because they can absolutely see that there's money here. This is a market. So now it's time to step your pussy game up and start giving me something that's yanking. And that's the end of my discussion.
That was a good one. Do you have an Instagram with me? Because I literally forgot to read any Boys Love manga. All I've read this week is One Piece because I'm rereading One Piece and it's 1,000 chapters. So it's a lot. I forgot to read anything else.
No, no, you're fine. I actually do. I have two Instagrams of the day. As you can imagine, these are the Instagrams of the day for the lead actors for Your Name Engraved Herein because they are cute.
Oh.
So the first Instagram I'm going to give you is the Instagram for Edward Chen. His Instagram is, I'm going to spell it out because it's really long. The Instagram is CHENHAOSEN802. So it's Chen Haosen 802. And his Instagram has a decent following, but not nearly as many followers as you'd expect for a movie that was so popular. But you know what? I'm sure that will change. But he has a nice Instagram, a lot of modeling stuff, a lot of promotional stuff, but he's very handsome. So if you like his face, you should like his Instagram. The next Instagram is for the actor who played Birdie. Now his name is Sang Jin Hua, and his Instagram is like mostly letters. So that's why I wanted to say his name before I gave you his Instagram. His Instagram is JHTSENG13. So it's basically, I guess, the initials for his last name and then his first name, maybe, or maybe the initials for his first names and then his last name. I'm not exactly sure because I don't know kind of the name order for Taiwanese names. I apologize. Um, he seems to have a few more followers than the actor that played Jahan, and I don't blame it because he's beautiful. I don't think I mentioned that in our review at all, but the kid that plays Birdie, I was like, I would be obsessed because he's gorgeous. But he has an Instagram that has a few more personal pictures than maybe the other kid does. Like he's got some pictures that he takes himself, plus he's got his standard marketing pictures, and he just looks really friendly. I don't know if that's true or not because I don't know him, but in the pictures that he and he's got a lot of endorsements and campaigns that he's modeling for right now. So there's a lot of really good pictures on his Instagram if you're interested in looking. But those are my Instagrams of the day. Also, fun fact, and I can't believe I forgot to mention it earlier. I'm so glad I remembered it right now. Our favorite Chris Wu played the brother in this show. And when I first saw him, I'm like, why does that guy look familiar? Where do I know that guy from? And then when they got like another view of him, like, oh, it's the guy from Trapped. He plays the brother, but he had like long hair and glasses, so you couldn't see his face very well.
I have to go back and watch. I did not pick up on that.
Yeah, so when Jian goes home and he's having like this really tense conversation with his dad got mad at him because he asked his brother how long he had been dating that girl, which I mean, that sounded like a conversation starter. We would say that here in America all the time, like, oh, hi, how long y'all been going together? It wouldn't be considered rude or nosy, it'd just be conversation. But the dad got like super pissed off about that. Anyway, the brother is Chris Wu.
I have to go look. Okay, I'll go look.
Yeah, it's a really short scene, so like he has maybe one line. It's nothing at all. It's nothing at all.
Paid.
Yeah, but the point is he's getting more roles. He's acting, and considering how the history franchise fucked over all of those actors time and time again, we're just glad to see somebody continuing to be able to make a living as an actor. Also, somebody had a picture on Twitter of Mr. Thomas and Wayne sitting together, and I'm like, ooh, go ship. I approve because, like, considering the energy that Wayne was giving to his scenes in Make Our Days Count, and then considering the energy that Mr. Thomas was receiving in Make Our Days Count, I'd like to see it.
I would too. I would.
As you twirl your head, yeah, me too, girl.
Yeah, like maybe I'd click the link.
So I guess that's the end of today's show. Like Mason said, we're going to be doing Pro Next Door in 2 weeks. We would have done it probably a little bit sooner, but the person that we're collaborating with, their schedule doesn't allow them to do it the next week. Also, we have changed to an every other week filming schedule. So it's really the best for us to try to stick with that, even though we do have a special guest. But
Yeah.
there still might be exceptions throughout the year if like there's a really super hot BL property that we need to talk about as soon as it comes out.
Right. Sorry, motorcycle outside the window.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's it. See you later. Bye.